Yeah, whoa. Welcome to another episode of Owlbear Soup. I'm Justin.
And I'm Rich. Hello. How's it going?
Hey. I I'm waking up. Uh
Mm.
I'm still recovering from New Year's. I was
Fair,
DJing till
fair.
like quarter after midnight, and then I ended up staying up later because I was all jazzed after streaming for so long. But
Mhm.
it was a good time.
And
How
then
was your New
we haven't
Year's?
actually well, I mean, we haven't talked about this ourselves, but then we woke up the next day and we played
Oh
a
yeah,
raid in Destiny 2 for 7 hours.
right.
It was
Yeah.
it was that was my big gaming experience for that day. It was a little draining. So
It
the
it
year's been
was.
so gaming so far.
Yeah, I didn't even I didn't even pick up my controller yesterday. I was just like, "Oh, well, I think I'm done for the day."
Oh, no. I dug deep into a different game and I'm excited to tell you about it a little bit later because it's one of my inspirations for today. Ha 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 ha.
Oh, okay, great.
Mhm.
Um, so the topic du jour is going to be kind of being on a ship combat, as if your life was a sailor. But before
Right.
we get into that, let's talk a little bit about some gaming news. I have a couple of things. I'll knock those out real quick, and then we'll get into yours because
Okay.
I think yours is going to be a little bit more of a discussion.
Sounds
Um,
good.
so, uh, Square Enix has announced they are going to be releasing a new Final Fantasy trading card game set for the folks who like the trading card game. I love the Final
Whoa,
Fantasy worlds. I love everything about it. I did not know they had a TCG till just now.
I didn't either.
Am I tempted to play it? Yes. Am I going to play it? I mean, probably not. I don't. I don't.
I mean,
I would need people to play it with,
mhm,
and
that's
we're
the
in
thing.
a pandemic, right? So,
Mhm.
um, yeah, there's that, right?
Yeah, I
But
still have some Marvel Dice Masters. Is that what that game's
oh
called?
yeah,
I can't remember. I might have
yeah,
gotten rid of them, and it was like, "Let's
yep,
all play," and then we never did. Just too bad.
exactly, yeah.
Do you think
Uh,
the Final Fantasy TCG might be like the pirate one where you fold out swords?
I
You know,
hope
that was
so.
like build your pirate ship?
Yeah, that would be awesome.
I'd
I
be into that.
now I'm into it.
Yeah,
Now I'm gonna buy a booster pack of them. You know, one of those big boxes, and then I'm gonna expect to be unfolding swords the entire time. And if I don't get that, I'll be
right?
disappointed.
Absolutely.
Speaking of cards and card games, a high grade Magic the Gathering Beta Edition Black Lotus card is going up for auction in January. So
Oh
January
my
14th to
gosh.
17th, there is a graded 9.5 Black Lotus from Beta. So just a little reference. There was only 3,000 Beta Black Lotus cards ever printed. Um, and so, and there's like expected maybe 57 of those 3,000 are graded
Mhm.
at a 9.5. So this is a really rare card.
Oh, wow.
You
Oh,
know,
wow.
these can go for, you know, $100,000. It's never anything that I'm gonna go any more into than just kind of enjoying
No.
like seeing the ridiculousness of this. Because I mean, Magic the Gathering kind of rolled out. What is it? 1990, 92, 93, right around there. So
Yeah, I bought a box of Beta. No, is that right? Revised in '94.
okay, yeah, I had
Yeah.
some beta. I had some revised. I played pretty much until like Ice Age, and then I stopped for a long
Mhm.
time, and then I came back.
Me too.
Yeah. Now I'm definitely regretting, like, now I'm thinking back on it, and it's like, I guarantee some of those cards that we were just playing with on picnic tables with no card sleeves,
Mhm.
you know, like there's some value there. And
Right?
um and it's kinda, you know, it's kind of not sad to think about, but it is kinda sad to think about,
A
right?
little bit. I mean, I totally know I played against Moxes and Black Lotuses, no problem. I'm sure they were at my tables.
Mhm.
I didn't have them.
Yeah.
Um, I bought that box when I was 14. I worked at a summer camp, and I got paid,
Mhm.
like, $450 for 9 weeks. I guess it was
Oh,
longer, 11
man.
weeks?
Oh,
So, yeah,
wow.
but I spent a bunch of that on a box, and Three of us did it, and we opened our boxes right there in like a dirty summer camp staff
Uh-huh.
cabin on those picnic
Right?
tables, just dusty and dirty.
Yeah.
And I know like some of the older people just totally like took us for a ride and on all sorts of trades. Like, I don't need this ebony horse. Was that one of them? I can't remember. It sounds boring. I don't want an artifact. I just want fireballs.
Right. Oh, man.
Oh, we were so young, so young.
Yeah, so young. And speaking of old games that kind of are from my youth, Warhammer: The Old World. So Games Workshop is teasing Warhammer: The Old World. So
Oh
what
wow.
this is kind of looking at some of the factions and stuff from the old world, kind of a throwback-esque type of game. I don't know much more about it other than it's going to be starting off with the Bretonnians, the Orcs, the High Elves, and the Wood Elves. So this is going to be, as far as I know, like if you look at what Warhammer is now versus what Warhammer was 20 years ago, the factions have changed a lot. The idea has changed a lot. And I think they're going to be throwing back a little bit more to that. I
Okay,
enjoy Warhammer and all its nonsense. So I will definitely be keeping an eye on this. Yeah.
that's
And
good. I'm so far
that's what
out.
I got.
Yeah, Warhammer Fantasy, Blood Bowl, Necromunda, but I never played Warhammer. Just all around the edges.
All around the
Um,
edges. Yeah.
all around the edges. Well, my bit of news, I just wanted to take a look. I think we talked last week, 2 weeks ago, about EN World, and they were doing their vote for your favorite RPGs for 2021, your most anticipated ones. And they've come up with their top 10, and some of the ones on here I'm kind of interested in checking out. Actually, these are on my list for sure, and some of them I had never heard of. um,
Okay.
so let's see. Should we hit the highlights for me?
Yeah, let's do it.
If you want the whole list,
Oof. It's just a top 10, right?
it is just a top 10. So
Give
number
us a
10 is
top 10 in rapid
SLA.
fire.
Fair enough. SLA Industries, second edition by Nightfall Games. This is one I don't know. It's a game of urban horror set in the world of progress, a vast world of ruin and decay. So very dystopian, scary, uh, beat things up style game.
Mhm.
Role
Yeah.
playing. um,
Right.
Number 9 that they have on here, which I'm surprised by, I figured this would be higher, is Werewolf the Apocalypse, coming out by Renegade. Um, just because that was my personal longest game with a World of Darkness, so that one's good. Um, Number 8, Brancalonia. Brancalonia? Not sure. The Spaghetti Fantasy RPG. They're trying to take a crack at making spaghetti fantasy. Taking a spaghetti western and making this very
Oh, okay. Yeah.
Italian-based fantasy game by Asheron Books. I'm super excited to check that one out. Pathfinder is coming out for Savage Worlds, so that's
Okay.
cool. That's going to happen at the late 2021. It looks like they're going to just change the whole game, apply Galarian to Savage Worlds, and
Might
take
as
a run
well.
with it, see how it goes. Yeah. Rivers of London is this was also on the list last year, I believe. It'll come out at some point by Chaosium. An ordinary constable turned magician's apprentice style urban fantasy.
Oh, nice.
Ian Publishing's own Level Up only comes in at number 5. There's some big ones on this list. Number 4 is the 6th edition of King Arthur's Pendragon, a game I've never played for 5 other editions.
Hmm.
So I've never done Arthurian fantasy. I like it, but I don't
No.
play in it. Number 3 is the One Ring 2nd edition by Free League. They're taking it over from Cubicle 7, and it looks like they're going to be putting out a whole bunch of stuff for our adventures in Middle Earth, which is very cool.
Hmm.
First place is a split between Dune Adventures in the Imperium, which was the winner last year. It's again, these are always on the lists because they get delayed.
Yeah.
But I'm excited for that one. The other one that got in the list was Twilight 2000,
Hmm.
which is not one I know almost anything about. I know that it is set in Poland, kind of a war devastated Poland, and an alternative version of events in Eastern Europe and Scandinavia. So
Oh.
if it's that well liked, it's wild that it's not on my radar, and I'm gonna have to check it out.
Yeah, and that's a good thing. That's a good thing to use these lists for is kind of dig into games
Mhm.
that you haven't explored before. Um, I was reading a really in-depth, written review of Vampire Fifth Edition, like the actual
Mhm.
mechanics of it. Like there's a lot of mess with it, but that's beside the point, right? But
Yes.
the mechanics of it, Um, and they were talking about how the mechanics, just feel good, work better, that type of stuff. And it's convinced me that like maybe I need to try some of this new White Wolf stuff.
Hmm.
Um, and maybe Werewolf, if they use the same kind of system as Vampire Fifth, like if it's the same system, completely, maybe that will be a
Yeah.
better opportunity for me to dive back into
Mhm.
World of Darkness.
Yeah, these games are getting passed around a lot from
Hmm.
group to group, but I really like that the people who are working on them are huge fans of
Hmm.
have been of the World of Darkness forever. It's not just they're not just grabbing the franchise just to own it and then make it their own. They've have these older concepts and they want to keep them going.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
Let's see here. That's. Was there any others on there that you wanted to hit up?
that
I
was
don't remember
it,
all of those. That was the werewolf one stood out on my list that it was so low. Um,
right?
because World of Darkness was constantly clipping at the heels of Dungeons and Dragons in the
Hmm.
90s. So
Right. Yeah,
it
there was
shows the
a there
real
was
weakness
a
of 3.5. So it that
ton.
Vampire could keep up with it.
Right. Um, 3.5. I was playing Vampire back in with second ed. Come on. um, so, but when there was a Twitter post, and it was like, if D&D was your first game, what was your second?
Hmm.
Because we know a lot of people who are role playing right now that only play one, but that's not how it was. Used to play
No.
quite a few,
Yep.
and I am not sure if I think I played Rifts before I played Werewolf. I think that's the timeline, but they were
I
both in there with
was
Shadowrun.
Yep. It was D&D, World of Darkness, Star Wars,
Oh gosh,
D6,
Star
a
Wars
weird
D6.
Fallout homebrew RPG,
Mhm.
and then it was a bunch of D&D again
Deadlands
until
is the other one for me.
yeah, I've never played Deadlands. Yeah, it was a lot of D&D after that until I hit Shadowrun eventually. I didn't play
Very nice.
Shadowrun until like the 20th anniversary, so I don't know a lot of those older editions, but I love
Mhm.
Shadowrun. That's a ton of fun. Yeah, I
Oh my god.
yeah. Yeah, no, it's like, and I'm counting them back in my head. It's like, and then after I discovered Shadowrun, it was a bunch of play by post games on the internet, and a lot of those were really weird rules and stuff.
Kind of have to be, right? I
Yeah,
like that. Oh wow.
yeah. I saw. Did you see? So Joseph Scrimshaw, he did a
Mhm.
tweet and he said, state your age without actually stating your age or something like that. I forget. You know that meme that's
Yeah.
going on.
Yeah, yeah.
And
Mhm.
so yeah, so to state my age, I was like, yeah, when I was in middle school, I met my middle school girlfriend in an AOL chat room. It's like I think that states my age.
Yeah, pretty well, pretty well. Um,
but
the,
but I used to play a lot of D&D in the AOL chat rooms. Like
mhm.
that was where 90% of my play was in like the 90s. So
It makes sense. I mean, it's just an easy place to have it, so
mhm. Yeah. So all this
oh,
virtual
wow.
tabletop stuff is it's just old school. But second edition, you didn't really use a map very often, so it really didn't matter.
Right,
Um,
what's the difference between Discord and AOL chat rooms, really? Come on.
exactly, right? So anyway, uh, oh man, what else you got before we jump into our topic?
No, that's it for news for me. I was just taking a look at that, just trying to keep up. No, my year's all about moving forward. I got no news. I'll have news
All
next time.
right. Here we go. So we're going to be talking about ship adventures, adventures in boats, that kind of idea. This is going to include fun things like, the idea of traveling from one place to another, the kind of things you encounter on the ocean, the kind of like adventures you might have if a ship was your base of operation. We kind of started talking about using your ship as a base of operation
Mhm.
last month, and so we're going to kind of build on that a little bit. And then yeah, let's see what kind of fun stuff we can do in with encounters at the sea.
Oh my gosh, I'm so excited.
S- yeah.
Ooh.
All right. So kick us off. You had some
Okay.
thoughts rolling into this already.
I did because I wanted to come up with some things that would inspire me for this, and I didn't just want to go like, let's make the Odyssey.
Hmm.
Theros has already done that. We'll talk about that later. But
Yeah.
I have two games in particular that I like for this style of game. Both very very similar. One of them is, of course, The Legend of Zelda: Wind Waker.
Okay.
I almost said the best Zelda game. I won't do that, but it's a memorable one for me.
Yeah.
So this is, you are in, the archipelago. There's tons and tons of islands everywhere. There's things to find on all of them, and you have a ship that will take you through them, right? We get
Hmm.
a couple of the islands that are blocked by like winds and storms that you can't go to, but um, eventually you are able to kind of manage your way through there.
Hmm.
And one of the things I really liked about that game is there's so much about that game that is not about combat. It's kind of one of the first ones that for me was like, travel is an experience. There's a lot of things that you can do. I want to go to these islands not to beat things up, but to find things. There's my
Yeah.
my hunt is very specific. I mean, Zelda's all about that, right? But
Right.
it did it in a really neat way. Like, have I been to this island? Oh, maybe I should stop and just see what's here. I don't know. Ooh, that island has a neat feature. I want to go check it out and see what's going on there. Right? It was a very huge exploration game, and I had cool tools to let me like track and remember things.
Hmm.
And so when I think about shipboard stuff, that's like a major bit of inspiration is this. I don't want to just, head through and I'm not based in a town and I go fight the stuff around this town. No, I'm moving. I'm heading over here. What's this new horizon? Oh, there's a storm. Now I'm in trouble. Oh, there's a dragon. Okay, that's bad. Now my
Hmm.
ship's getting attacked by
Nice.
moblins. I can't remember what they were
Yeah.
in,
Yeah.
in that
I
game.
think that. Yeah. I think they were moblins or something. Yeah. Something weird like that. Have you played
Mhm.
Oceanhorn?
No, Oceanhorn.
Okay. So Oceanhorn is a love letter to that Zelda game, and it's I think you can play it on your PS4, but it's also a mobile game you can play on your phone. They
Oh,
released Oceanhorn 2 recently on iOS. It's supposed to be incredible if that was your favorite of the Zeldas. People really seem to love that. Um, okay, and you said you had another game. Yep.
well, the same genre. Like I'm a huge fan of adventure exploration games, just in general.
Hmm.
And
Yeah.
yesterday, oh my gosh, yesterday is that true? Um, I started playing finally Ghost of Tsushima
Oh yeah.
for PS4. That's a game that came out at some point this year, and it like hits a niche for me that is amazing because it is like, are you ready?
Yeah.
Assassin's Creed meets the board game Tokaido. I don't mean
Okay.
just because it's influenced by Japan or anything, but because
Yeah.
there are lots of things to do in the game that are not combat. Right?
Okay.
Takedo is just about having this wonderful journey. You just kind of
Hmm.
like a very leapfroggy game. It's not a very difficult game. It's just I want to go to all the onsens. I want to collect all the um, what was it like? I can't remember in that game. I want to go to all these places. I want to do all this stuff. It's a big collection game. And in this
Hmm.
one, the other day, let's see. Okay. Take Assassin's Creed, set that aside.
Yep.
I played a flute to help a grieving grandmother. Um, I wrote a haiku about defeat. I hung out in an onsen and thought about um, the future for a while. I followed some foxes to like a fox shrine, and then I
Oh
got to pet the
wow.
fox afterwards. Like these
Well,
are
that's
all
important.
huge. Right, exactly. I couldn't do it the first few times, and eventually I get to pet that fox. Um,
Hey
but it
Aubrey,
was
thanks for
so
joining.
good.
Yeah.
Oh, hello, hello.
Oh my god.
Yes, hair looks
I
great.
I
But that's what I want are these
I
other
oh,
things.
go ahead.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh no,
Yeah,
I
no,
just, I
I
just
keep
when I
seeing
think
that
about
game.
big explorations, it's so good,
Exactly.
and it's got like fun combat stuff, and we're gonna talk D&D. It's got fun combat stuff, but I wanted to think about how to add these extra elements in, especially if we're
Hmm.
on a ship and we do have this easy way to like move around
Yeah.
through the world. Like, what kind of things could we find and add in an like a naval adventure?
Hmm.
So those are my
Also,
inspirations for
hey Hudson. Uh,
Hello,
yeah.
hello.
So, and I was thinking a little bit about inspirations without dipping too deeply into pirates because I know pirates are coming up. But one of the things that I enjoy, and this is honestly a campaign that I've always wanted to run, and this is when I think of like an ocean adventure. Like if I was going to do a solely ocean adventure, my primary
Mhm.
inspiration would be the classic American film Waterworld.
Oh, okay. Okay. Go in there.
So right, right. So I love Waterworld, unabashedly. I think it's a fantastic romp into a really weird world, and everything's just goofy. And they were trying to tap into Mad Max stuff, and they didn't quite get it right. And it's a
Mhm.
disaster, but I love every second of it. Um,
That's amazing.
so part of the idea there, though, and this is I'm starting to see a theme in the way that I think about adventures, um, is the idea that you're out on the ocean and there is no land near around. And
Okay.
it's not necessarily like and it's not. It just doesn't need to be like there is no land in existence. It's like there's just no land around in the you're in the middle of the ocean. And so, what kind of like things are you going to be dealing with out there, right? You're going to be dealing with things like no wind on occasion, right? So you're going to have to figure out
Mhm.
ways to manage that. Just drifting aimlessly. You're going to have to deal with storms. You're going to have to deal with like food. You're going to have to deal with water. You're gonna have to deal with those things getting contaminated because of the waves and the water and time and stuff like that. And so and it's like I like those ideas of like looking at ocean as a survival. Um,
Sure. Yeah.
it's almost survival out there, right, Hudson? It's actually it's not a great movie, but it's a fun movie and it's ridiculous. And I'm a huge fan of like world building, the idea of world building, and when movies do a really good job to inspire me based on their world, I appreciate that movie. And that's kind of why I've always appreciated prequels too for Star Wars, is just because of how much that expanded the Star Wars universe and expanded the history and expanded what Star Wars was. And it became a world building thing for me where I was like, okay, well now I can imagine like a totally different version of Star Wars. And that's kind of what what
Mhm.
that movie is for me. Um and then my other, of course, inspiration is old like um old Flynn movies, Errol Flynn,
Oh,
and
sure.
and that's just because I think combat is one of the pillars in D&D, and there's very few combats as engaging as great swashbuckling combats, like getting
Mhm.
things like oh man, we are getting hit by the bots. Woo!
Okay.
And oh wait, that one wasn't a bot. Oh wait, there we go. Ah, that was. Oh man, keeping up. Yeah, saw part of that movie, fell asleep. Not the movie's fault. Yeah, I mean it was kind of partially the movie's fault. But I love Errol Flynn movie, or yeah, because like the classic uh dagger down the sails type of stuff. I'm
Yeah.
totally into
Yeah.
it. Right? I think
I
that's
was not messing around.
fantastic.
We gotta have that.
Yeah. Oh man.
Oh my
Oh
gosh.
man. Thanks for being on top of that, Aubrey. Thanks for modding and knocking those out. You are killing it over there. Um, thank you, Wisebat, for helping. Wisebot. And anyway, yeah. So those are the things I think of whenever I'm thinking about. And I love the exploration portion of it that you brought up. That doesn't even like that didn't even wrap. I didn't even think about that. Right.
I
Like
love this.
what
So
kind?
our backgrounds tell this story pretty well, I think.
Yeah.
On the boat,
Right.
and then mine is the cool stuff that you can see when you're on a boat.
Right. Yeah. Um, so yeah, and and it's super awesome. I've been very excited about this. There's a lot, we could really go into depth of this,
Mhm.
but D&D has been very gracious and has supplied some rules, and these are very top level rules. I do
Yeah.
have a post that I'll talk about a little bit more next month, kind of detailing some of the different like types of officers and some of the deep down stuff, the nitty gritty things. But I think for this instance, like we can just look at what they have and build on it.
I think so.
So
Yeah.
yeah. So where do we want to start? There's a lot to talk about here.
Oh my gosh, there really is. But I think that you're right that we should focus on the boat, right? I mean, it is going to be the scene. If it is a ship at sea adventure,
Hmm.
the boat should be a major, major character in that. So
Hmm.
let's focus on boats.
All right.
Um,
Uh, so I mean, I guess kicking it off, let's talk a little bit about. Oh, well, let's see here. So you're. Do. Oh, nice. Awesome. Yeah. So if
that is perfect. I love it when we sink boats. I mean, it's just
yeah.
why not light things on fire? Why not? And now suddenly there's a consequence.
Hmm. Yeah, and I think that's one of the things is like what are the consequences of doing some of these things and how do you adjust for it? I think that's going to be totally important to talk about.
Mhm. Oh yeah.
Uh, talking quickly, you have your boat, you have your forecastle, your quarter deck, you have your main deck, you have your lower deck, you have your hold. The lower deck is where people sleep. The hold is where you put all the other stuff, right? Basic.
Mhm.
You can find the layout of any ships anywhere, and there's a very nice view of it in. Specifically looking in Saltmarsh. Um, Another thing to kind of consider is roles on the ship, and a lot of times that has to do with like officer roles. So you have your captain, your first mate, your bosun, your quartermaster, your surgeon or barber, or bones or bone saw. That's another thing they would call them, and cook.
You should really call them
So
bone saw so that everybody can appreciate some Spider-Man 1 references.
bone saws ready. Um, so on a ship, and I'm really like really following Saltmarsh. Like Saltmarsh
Mhm.
has a very good setting. You one of those little like things that you can kind of think about is loyalty and quality of crewmates. One of the things you can worry about is mutiny. One of the encounters you can
Yes.
have is shore leave because like I mean, we're not pirates, we're sailors. Even so,
Mhm.
like once you're out on the sea for, a month and you come back into port, you're gonna have a bunch of rowdy sailors on your hands, especially if they have sailors under their employ. Um took me oh.
Yeah. There's all
Yeah.
sorts of things that could happen there.
Mhm. Exactly. Yeah, and then and of course there's the ship itself, like ship upgrades and the way you move ships and some of the things you can encounter on the ship on the sea. So I think that's where gonna some of the interesting things are gonna be is encountering other things. So ships encountering other
Yeah.
ships, ships encountering giant monsters, ships encountering hordes of monsters, right? And last week we talked a little bit about the Sahagin, and you can easily lift that encounter and put it into this, because dealing with those kinds of creatures on the ocean. Um, yeah, they did a really good job in Saltmarsh of like outlining a good chunk of the rules, and there's a ton of
Yeah.
things to kind of expand upon. But specifically, when you're a DM, you're looking at what is going to be fun for your players. And
Mhm.
Rich, what you got?
Well, gosh, so taking a look at this section, right? And I totally agree. If you want a rule set, get Saltmarsh. Appendix A of Ships and Sea is the dream. Um, but some of the things in here that I'm going to want with a boat, like we started talking about with our undersea adventure, was this like this ship that becomes a mobile home that we start upgrading, not mobile base. There we go. And I
Hmm.
love the upgrades in here. They have some really smart ones. I like
Yeah.
a lot. Getting into basic things like our reinforced hull and vigilant watch. Having a row of
Hmm.
crystal orbs filled with a beholder eyeball, just
Hmm.
watching out for invisible creatures coming by, clockwork oars, dragon sails that make you resistant to certain damage types. I mean, there's just
Hmm.
good, smart stuff here. And that's always the stuff that I want to play around with when I'm looking at an adventure game where we are at sea or any like exploration adventure game. I love upgrades. I just love a good upgrade system. And
Yeah.
this is such a cool opportunity to not just focus on your characters and your own upgrades, but this headquarters and how it actually helps you in the game. So, if we build up our inn in Dragon Heist, right?
Yeah.
Are we battling another inn? I don't really think so.
No.
um, but this ship is going to end up in a fight at some point. It's going to be important that you have certain specific upgrades, right? That's what we
Hmm.
want. I think that's kind of the view I have when I hop on a ship and I hear that we're going to have an at sea campaign is all right, our ship's going to be in a fight
Yeah. Yeah. Your ship is
every time.
almost a sixth character, right?
It is.
Yeah, and that's almost what the party needs to treat it like. They need to treat it like an
Mhm.
extension of themselves, extension of the party, and you should reward them for that. Like, and I think we'll get into this maybe a little bit more later on today, or maybe next week. But things like, allowing them to do upgrades that give them layer actions, right? Like,
Mhm.
oh, they're getting
Great.
boarded. Well, okay, so they have this advantage whenever they're getting boarded of these certain kind of layer actions.
Mhm.
Or they have certain layer actions they can do whenever they're attacking other ships because they're on their boat, right? Maybe a layer
Right.
action for them is swinging to another ship. As a layer action on the initiative roll of 20, they can grab a rope and swing across, giving them,
Mhm.
a movement as a layer action. Things like that is really fun to think about.
Mhm.
It's really fun to
I
think
like
about
that a
taking
lot.
what they've taken here and expanding it to make ships layers.
Yeah. One of the things I like in I think it's Assassin's Creed Odyssey is you are, sailing around a lot and you'll see ships and some of them have Spartan flags and you'll see ships and some of them will have Athenian flags or sails,
Mhm.
easy to see. And you see those Spartan ones and you're like, "Uh-oh, I need to stay away from that one." Or, "Oh, they're coming right towards me. I know I'm in for a fight. This is a
Mhm.
merchant ship. I'm not actually too worried about them usually. Sometimes they'll shift, but I like the idea of this allegiance also that you can see out there.
Mhm.
And that might be a big part of your story as well. What flag are you flying? Do you change
Yeah.
your flag? Do you pull down your flag and pull up the pirate flag partway through? Um,
Yeah, exactly. Well, yeah, what flag are you flying whenever you approach too? Because
mhm,
a lot of ships would have multiple flags, and so, sometimes they would fly flags for different countries based on where they were. But on top of
yeah,
that, they would also have flags that signaled different things. So, like, the Jolly Roger was a red flag that signified no quarter. Like that means they're coming for you and they're going to, just rip you up, right?
mhm,
And so you got to think about the flags and how you interact with other ships on the sea, other nations.
mhm,
There's a lot of fun things you can really do on this. One thing that you brought up before we started rolling was mysterious islands, and oh man, that seems like a fun thing to do too, right? You see this weird island in the distance that's not on any charts, and
right?
so you get close to it, and then what kind of things do you experience? How do you get close to it? Um,
Absolutely.
you're
I
navigating
like,
the barrier reef to get up to it,
mhm,
right? That type of stuff.
yeah. Yeah, there's two sections on this one, right? Saltmarsh has a pretty good section here on being at sea, but of course the Theros book deals a little bit more with our Odyssey. So they have the
Hmm.
Caliphii, I believe, about a
Yeah.
different version of Odysseus going on the Odyssey. So they have a lot in here that's about islands like that. What kinds of islands could you find? Here's a list of mystical island environments, and it's done in a lighter way, I think, than Saltmarsh, but kind of a nicer way. So um,
Yeah.
this could be an idyllic island or a gateway or a promised land. What kind of inhabitants does it have? Here's another D10 list for that. Maybe there is an
Hmm.
oracle here or strangers, some kind of prisoner is on this island, some magical
Hmm.
properties, things like that. Not as long, I think, as the random encounters that we see in the Saltmarsh book for these islands, but it's
Right.
it's kind of a nicer way to look at them. I think it's a little bit more mystical. So
Yeah.
I am a huge fan of those.
Absolutely. And then of course, like the different encounters you can run into at sea, right? You have your open water encounters where you run into your Sahagin or your Cowlenth or Bloodhawks or certain dragons. And then there's running into other ships.
Yeah.
Yeah, running into things like Hydra and Marrow, right? Marrow, that's interesting. Harpies. sea hags, right? A dragon turtle.
Hmm.
You can be going around and oh, that's the one thing, right? In in Schult, there's the dragon turtle, that guy that guards the bay of the major city there, right? That's the kind of
Oh wow.
interesting things you can kind of run into,
Mhm.
is that how do you interact with these things? And I love the idea of trying to wrap all those into your encounters during your adventure, or not your adventures, your campaign.
Yeah.
When we look at a specific adventure, it's going to be looking at a very very specific thing that we're looking to do.
Right.
Is this particular adventure to go and seek out a mystical island? Is it to go figure out why these ships don't come back when they go to this place?
Mhm.
Is there a mysterious triangle of chaos off the coast of your southernmost kingdom that boats constantly sink in and weird sounds come from? Right.
Right. Right.
These are all great ideas for little adventures. And we were talking about our inspiration. One of the inspirations that people don't think about whenever they're thinking about ocean adventures is sci-fi. You can look in sci-fi and look at some of the weird things that people encounter in space and
Hmm.
sci-fi, right? And translate that directly to oceans.
Yeah.
Oh man, it's totally off, well, not totally off track, but rolling back a little to inspirations. Pirates of Darkwater, and we'll probably talk about that more. But
Oh yeah.
that wasn't as much a pirate thing as it was an ocean adventure.
Mhm.
Dealing with some strange cataclysm of this dark water. That could be something, right? There's like a
Yeah.
pollutant, there's a some kind of spell going on that's corrupting the water, and the water will attack your ship, or
Uh huh.
attack you,
Can't go certain
or
places.
absolutely.
Yeah. I like that because that also it limits your exploration, which is important in a thing like this, right? If I know
Hmm.
the big villains at that island over there, what's keeping me from just going there right now?
Hmm.
Um, it could be because the DM says I'm not a high enough level, but it could also be, well, because the water is, polluted and it will like eat away at our ship and will sink before we reach the island. Now
Hmm.
that's a problem we have to solve. I like
Yeah,
that.
that's kind of a fun adventure, right? Is, oh man,
Mhm.
I want to get to this island where this captive is, where it's being held by a prisoner by this boss. But yeah, there's this obstacle, the dark water, or this huge barrier reef. Right, we're in fantasy
Mhm.
land, right? We can make a
Yeah,
huge
absolutely.
barrier reef that's you know hundreds of miles deep, and you have to navigate that. And as you're navigating that, you're dealing with strange creatures that are
Mhm.
both like from the deep ocean and from the shallow ocean, because you have this huge reef. And oh man, that could be a ton of fun.
Yeah. I like that, especially you could do a couple things where the ship is breaking apart as it's going through that.
Hmm.
You could just let it be a story thing. You could also have them do it like a skill challenge to see if their ship can make
Yep.
it all the way through. Uh,
Yeah.
or it just, takes catastrophic damage, but it gets you across. Now what?
Right. Yeah.
Um,
Exactly.
if it's the big finale, well, now we're
Hmm.
stuck here on this island. We better go beat the boss. Because those are other things about these adventures, right? If you're base with you at all times, and you
Hmm.
run onto an island or something, and you fight some monsters, and they're harder than you thought, you just go back to your boat and like take a little nap.
Yeah,
um,
exactly.
Come back out the next day. In Zelda, the island refreshes. I'm sure there's more moblins. Cool, fight them again.
Yep.
Um, but D&D doesn't quite. I mean, we could. Doesn't quite have that refresh. It kind of breaks our bit of magical realism, I suppose.
Yeah, but you can do things that reset. Like if you took 8 hours, like there's traps that reset. Sure, your players know where they are, but they have to deal with them again.
Yeah, that's true.
Or things like ghosts, right? Like
Mhm.
sure, they took care of the ghosts that day, or that evening, or that night, but when they come back, well, the ghosts are attached to this area, so they're back.
Right?
Yeah. Uh,
And ghosts are an easy theme for this as well because you've got,
oh
plenty of
yeah.
shipwreck ghosts for sure, plenty of lost, islands where the people all died out for some mysterious reason. They were never able to escape. There's a
Hmm.
lot of things you could do there. I like that. Um, Another thing I was thinking about for an adventure like this, for a campaign like this, right, is
Yeah.
if you were hanging out in Waterdeep and there's a quest, how do you find out about the quest? I mean, maybe you see the notice board, or someone comes to find you, or you read the
Hmm.
newspaper. If you're out at sea,
Yeah.
um,
Yeah.
there's you got to figure that one out. I know that, of course, in some of these other games, you do have. Um, well, what does Link have? Link has the Navi. Is it Navi?
Yeah.
The blinking,
I think
wonderful
yes.
sound.
It's not. I don't think it's Navi, but it's something like that. Yeah. Because isn't
I can't
Navi
remember.
the name of the Pokedex in Pokemon Sword?
Oh, I can't remember. I
Okay.
remember
Yeah.
it's. Oh gosh.
Look at
Anyway,
me.
yeah, exactly. But there's got to be some way to let your players know, which is a cool, as they
Hmm.
mentioned in some of these books, a cool moment to add, like, I don't know, a Kenku who's, or rather an Aarakocra who's friendly, who is flying
Hmm.
deliveries around or something. You can make it a little silly, but or some animal messengers, things like that,
Yeah.
that know how to find your ship and will show up.
Well,
Um,
I mean, a great movie to watch for inspiration while at sea is Moana, right?
True.
Moana does a great job of conveying where they go next through alternative means. So she's on the ocean, and then she meets Maui, and Maui is able to direct. And
Hmm.
then and then they find yeah. Hey, listen,
I did
damn
mean,
it.
hey, listen, Navi.
Yeah, and and then and then the encounter with the coconut monkeys. Were they monkeys? Yeah, I don't know.
I'm
The
blanking.
coconut creatures. Yeah. And then yeah, oh, animal messengers with seagulls. Yeah, basically Twitter.
They just keep coming.
Oh.
They just keep coming.
Yeah.
You're like, get out of here, seagulls.
Mine, mine, mine. Yeah, I mean, that's another thing, right? Yeah, using animal messenger, like, in Game of Thrones, the crows. Uh,
Yeah.
one of the things is you can do interesting mystical messages at sea too, which is immediately where I thought about Moana, like when her grandmother passed, like the giant array that came and kind of like, and that became a message in its own, right? Like this is the way to go. Like you can do subtle
Right.
things like that. Remember, we're in a magic world, so if there's a magical arrow that shows up in the ocean, it's not out of ordinary, right? You can say
Yeah.
you see a school of flying fish, and as they leap into the air in front of you, you notice it's an arrow or a symbol, right? You're like, weird. That's a symbol. Oh, you can give cool ideas and
Mhm.
it kind of say, okay, well, this is how you progress forward to the next portion of the story.
Yeah. There's a really good one in uh, Ghost of Tsushima, which is, it's the wind. The wind is telling you where to go. So
Hmm.
your active quest, whatever it is, it's not like there's a dotted line on the ground, like a lot of these games. Um, but subtly, you can kind of notice there's a lot of flowers to hide in, and the flowers are all blowing in the wind in the direction you're supposed to be going. And you can, like,
Hmm.
press up on the controller, and huge gusts of wind will show up for a moment and kind of show you the path you're supposed to take. And
Hmm.
it's really neat. Like, it feels natural, even though it is, just a guide telling you exactly where to go. But
Yeah.
I love that kind of, the nature is now a character as well. And if you're on a ship, yeah, the ocean is a character
Yeah.
for sure.
The ocean's a very important character. Um, and that the ocean's something to pay attention to. The wildlife, nature,
Mhm.
wind. You brought up wind now, and I brought up wind earlier too. Wind is
Yeah,
a major issue at sea. So you think about that. Eberron and Carthoon kind of solve that with the ability to pull air elementals and use them to propel your
right.
ship, or water elementals and use them to propel your ship. Do you want your players to have that kind of technology? Do you want them to have to deal with trying to catch wind?
Hmm.
Because there's something to that too, right? Being stuck in a boat in the middle of the ocean with no wind around, like what do you do?
Hmm.
Like a calm sea in the middle of nothingness. So eventually your food runs out. It gets hot on the ship because you're out in the middle
Right.
of nowhere. You're running out of water. You're surrounded by water, but you're running out of water, right? And and so these become like some of the interesting encounters and skill challenges you can throw at the players. Like how are we going to survive this month on a boat and we have no wind. Like, sure, maybe you have a wizard who has the gust of wind spell. Is that enough to propel the vote very
I
far?
yeah.
I mean, you could alter it
Or
for
like-
your players, but
and an upgraded version would be nice, probably at some point.
yeah.
Like, um, let's see, Birthright had Realm Magic, which was hard to do. Took a lot of resources, but was much more powerful and was
Hmm.
not meant to be used in an adventuring way. So, spells
Yeah.
like that, items like that are always fun. I was just thinking back to Theros, because Theros has this big deal with like piety and the gods and things like that.
Hmm.
You start heading over to this island, you take a look at it, you're like, I do not want to go on that island. It looks spooky, it looks scary, but oh, the wind has stopped. Suddenly,
Right.
you get Poseidon like telling you to go places, and you should probably go there. Um,
Yeah.
could be really interesting. I don't know exactly how that plays out, like in a traditional D&D pattern. I wouldn't say
Yeah.
Mystra's forcing you to go to this island. It kind of gets rid of some of the free will from a regular D&D game. But I
Right.
love the plot device of like, the wind's not coming back until you go search that island. Let's go.
Yeah. Hudson brought up, yeah, do we have a druid for some sweet Aquaman type solutions? I'm like,
He's
yes.
so fun.
Right. And and that's one of the things is like, and let's look at the difference between a level 1 to 3 C campaign and where you are at level 10, right? So level 1 to 3, I think being stuck with no wind is a very real thing. Level 10,
Mhm.
yes, but I think by level 10, if you're doing a full sea adventure, one of the nice things you can do, the fun things you could do, is you can have your players discover rituals or
Yep.
custom things like that that will help them when they reach these situations, but they take resources. And when those
You need the
resources are
wind waker.
gone, exactly. Yeah, when those resources are gone, then that becomes a whole nother thing, right? So you create the twists of like, ooh, all right, we've been stuck at sea for 3 days. Do I use this ritual now, or do I wait another couple days just in case? Because if I use this
Right.
ritual now, it's gonna gust us. But then if we get into a big encounter, I won't be able to get us away from that encounter very quickly, and we're just gonna have to
Mhm.
deal with it. We're in Kraken country.
Right. Right. I like that. I feel like if you are 10th level in an at sea, if this has been your boat, your home the whole time, I feel like
Hmm.
part of D&D is mastering the basic stuff, right? By the time you're
Hmm.
level 10, um, you're, getting to a different plane is difficult. Dealing with the world that you're in right now, the prime material plane, shouldn't be too complicated. So
Right.
I love the idea that they have a resource. They can do it. It might take some work. It might send them somewhere they don't want to go exactly, but
Hmm.
if you can't control the wind as a level 10 at sea campaign, that seems like a tough campaign.
Yeah. Yeah. Kraken country is Aubrey's favorite reality TV show. Perfect. I make it.
Yeehaw!
um, yeah, and that's true. The challenges become very different. Lower levels, you have your basic couple of Sahagin being a huge challenge. 10th level, you're going to be starting to look at those bigger monsters, the Krakens. You're going to be looking at
Right.
other ships. And then once you're in like 15 plus, then you brought up the perfect thing, right? Planes, right?
Hmm.
Uh, what if we sail our ship into a different plane of existence? Like,
Oh, gosh, what would it
what
be?
if
Where we're going, we don't need oceans, and then just.
exactly, right? Because then you can start dealing with like the Gith, the Githyanki, the Githzerai, and their eternal war against the Beholders, right? Or not Beholders, Mind Flayers, and and that becomes another interesting thing because those are
Yeah,
very much seafaring characters as they're going through the sea of chaos.
right. Oh, I like this too because you've got, like you were saying, low levels, the water's hard. Medium levels, the dark water is hard. Your magical thing. But you get to that center that you were looking for, and actually, what you found is this seaport that connects to like outside of the crystal sphere, out to the
Hmm.
extraplanar realm. And
Yeah.
so now this is your stopping point to send you off into space. Let's go.
Yeah, this becomes
Um,
your Starjammer. Like you find the modification that you can attach to your ship to turn it into a
mhm,
Starjammer, and then for the last
right.
5 levels of your campaign, you're Starjamming. So instead of going
Mhm,
from island to island exploring, you're going from plane to planet to moon
right.
exploring.
But like you were saying, I mean, it's not significantly different. The expanse, there are some moments in there that feel like they could happen on the water, and they'd be about the
Hmm.
same. Of course, there's some sci-fi, but
Yeah.
we're approaching another ship. There's a ship that just saw us. We want to try to escape. That's all like stuff that should be happening at your lower level campaigns here.
Yeah, yeah. And then it's kind of yeah, and we're bringing up the tiers, and it's essentially like all your travel and when you're looking at ocean campaign, all your travel, all your resting, all your camping, all your everything happens on your ship.
Mhm.
And the rest of the campaign can actually be pretty well structured like a normal campaign. You're in a ship, and you hear rumors of this pirate fleet that you have to go encounter.
Mhm.
That's led by a necromancer who's a lich,
Yeah.
and now you have to kind of explore, going from port to port, island to island, to defeat the minions, to gather the information to find out where the fleet calls home, and you make your approach, and you come up with your plans, and you're making stealth checks all while
Yeah.
on a ship. It is a D&D adventure.
Hmm.
So, now I'm gonna do
All
dragon
the
heist on a
while,
boat.
oh, I mean, fair. All the while, whenever you stop in port, you're asking, you're talking to sailors, learning stories about the area.
Hmm.
You hear about some of the shipwrecks that are out there. Maybe you are hearing about the lost, broken MacGuffin, the Rod of Seven Parts, or what, a similar thing. Maybe that is like the thing that is going to allow you. That's the wind, the chimes of the wind, or something. And they've been
Hmm.
split apart and scattered amongst the isles, but I've heard about one of them. So I'll tell you this, and you get
Hmm.
sent out there, and it's just a thing you're keeping an eye on. Maybe you find a second one at some point. You do get that mastery over the winds. Those would be really fun things for me to seed into a campaign, because I love
Hmm.
that exploration, gathering, collection part of so many games, and they fit in here really
Hmm.
well.
Yeah. And I like a certain level of grittiness to make my heroes really make them feel like they're being heroes.
Hmm.
So with that, I'm thinking like all that's awesome, and then I'm also thinking about things like, oh, they have to go pretty far north, so now they have to deal with icebergs, and
Oh, sure.
how does that affect them on their day to day? Like, oh, not only is it cold on deck, they have to have a constant watch out so that they don't
Hmm.
hit an iceberg. And what happens when they do hit an iceberg? Do I want it to crush their ship, or do I just want it to be a kind of like almost an island-esque encounter?
Right.
Where sure they get stuck on the ship, but you know, or they get stuck on the iceberg, but they get off the ship a little bit and they explore this iceberg, and it's huge. And what kind of
Mhm.
creatures live on an iceberg? What
Oh,
kind of
yeah.
hags
Like
are
it's been
there?
hollowed out.
Yeah, yeah. It
Oh,
becomes a whole new cool little alien area to explore.
right. They could be even like, stuck on an ice spike coming out of this. Like some creatures have hollowed out this iceberg and
Hmm.
added spikes to like catch prey. Um,
Yeah, you could almost have like an entire dungeon made in an iceberg, and you just keep going deeper and deeper. So.
yep, you're underwater, but here we go. I
Yeah,
like that.
yeah. So it's real good. I'm pretty excited about this whole ocean adventure thing now.
Yeah,
Um,
yeah, yeah.
all right.
Oh
So
gosh,
yeah, so
I'm thinking about
kind of an
Ghost.
overview.
Sorry, good stuff.
You're thinking
Yeah,
about
yeah.
ghosts?
Well, they've
Oh
got
yeah,
these
ghosts.
quests that are like, look at go find the mountains with like the tall, there's a white leaf tree on the top because lightning strikes happened and all the leaves like were changed forever, and so we have this like
Hmm.
mythical rumor thing that you need to go find while you're out there. And that happens in a lot of these games, and I love that as just like an extra thing that everyone's looking out for, but as the DM, it's not coming up till third level.
Right,
But eventually
right.
they'll find that island if they head this way.
Hmm.
I would want to give my players those kind of things to keep an eye out for as they're playing.
Yeah. All right.
That's what I got.
Well, it is 11:55. So in
Oh,
wrap up, what we're gonna do is so my brain. It's been a morning. So we talked a little bit about ships, using a ship as a base, some of the basic rules of it. Talking about things like you can definitely check out Ghost Saltmarsh. You can check out Theros, get some cool rules.
mhm.
There's all kinds of cool encounters, mysterious lands, fun locations, interesting things to challenge your players. So next week, what we're going to be doing is we're going to be, with the help of chat, we are going to be starting to build our first ocean-based adventure. So we're going to assume in this that our players have access to a ship, whether it's their ship or not. And and we'll oh yeah, haunted lighthouses are awesome too. Yeah.
Yes.
Oh, nah, man, I totally forgot about that. I'm gonna make a note for that for next week. Yeah, and so next week we'll start writing the adventure, and then the following weeks throughout the month of January, we will be working on the adventure and some encounters every Sunday here at 11 a.m. You can watch us here or on YouTube. It's soup.fyi, wherever you want to watch us. So YouTube or Twitch, then you can find us. And then currently getting posted on our YouTube also is the festivals and fairs that we were working on. So you can go check out the YouTube videos there where we did the same thing about festivals and fairs. And yeah, all right, Rich. I think you have a recent book on the DMs Guild that you probably should shout out.
I do. It's called Beast Bonded. It is a book about animal companions for younger heroes, although anyone needs a pet. So check it out. Just new rules to give you a pet immediately, right at the start of a game, without needing to be a ranger with an animal companion. It's great. It's on the DMs Guild. Check it out.
Yeah. All right. Well, everybody here on Twitch, make sure to follow us. Everyone over here on YouTube, make sure to subscribe. Thanks for hanging out with us, and we will be back next Sunday at 11 a.m.